changed different now, got the cheat code. Lottie, I just watching, you ain't got the cheat code. Can't stay the same, yeah, you gotta switch it up. Can't stay the same, yeah, you gotta switch it up. Game changed different now, got the cheat.
All right, welcome back to the Goddess Giselle Podcast. I'm your host, Goddess Giselle, and thank you so much for being here. If you're new to the channel, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. I create this space to really shed light on the voices of women making an impact in their communities. I think that it's really important for us to amplify the voices of women across the world. And so I decided to create this space for us to really get to know each other behind our brands, and also just to create a safe space for women and to truly empower our voices. So without further ado, I'm going to jump right into episode 10 with Tracy Imm. Tracy, how are you doing today?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you so much for creating this space. I too think there need to be more spaces like this where we can share our voices and we can get to know each other and hear about our journeys and our stories and learn from each other, honestly.
Yes, I agree. I swear, when I first met you, we just kind of clicked. And I was just like, okay, Tracy, we're going to stay connected. And I'm glad we have places like LinkedIn where we can do that. But it's just so cool to meet people in industry, outside of industry, and just learn about their journey. But before we jump into your personal journey, I like to start with a little icebreaker. So if you could share, Tracy, 3 people that inspire you. They don't have to be famous. It could be family. It could be anyone that you admire growing up. But if you could name 3 people, who would they be?
Sure. Well, I know exactly who they are. And some people may know who they are, some people may not. But the first person is Dr. Shirley Davis, and she dubs herself as the success doctor. And she's somebody that I worked with in corporate who her grit and tenacity is so admirable, and she has been a mentor to me over the years. She left corporate and she went out on her own. She has a very successful speaking business internationally. She is just my inspiration for what's possible when you really set your mind to it and you use sort of your gifts and your talents in the world to make positive change.
Wow.
And yeah, I've stayed in touch with her. I have interviewed her on my podcast. She's written a number of books. She's just a really great person. And I met her very early in her journey, before she had her PhD, and her story's inspirational. And I take so much, when I'm having a bit down day, I'm like, well, what would Dr. Shirley do? Or what would she say? Right. And so I think everybody needs a Dr. Shirley in their life. And then,
Yes.
yeah. And then there's another person that's local to me in Baltimore that I literally met at a networking event, and we are birthday twins. And her name is Bianca Wise. And Bianca was the highest ranking female lieutenant in the Baltimore County Fire Department, first African American in that role.
Wow.
Really, first responder, but she left because she knew that there was something bigger for her in the world. And she now has a 7-figure business where she is helping. She has a company called Home Helpers of Baltimore and Rockville, and she places CNAs with families who need caregiver support. And she did all of this through her mindset. And so she's written a book. She calls herself the Mindset Snob. I literally have only been friends with her for like a year, but she motivates me, inspires me, and just really keeps me grounded in what's possible as well.
Wow.
And so those 2 women are just huge in my life. And so shout out to Bianca Wise for what she's doing, not only in the city of Baltimore, but her motivation for why and how she has grown her career and really left government service to become an entrepreneur, and really just wants to go out and speak on stages and motivate women. She grew up in the projects in East Baltimore. She is, one super smart lady, and street smart, but business smart, business savvy. I think in less than 4 years, she made 7 figures. I mean, this girl is a
Wow.
hustler. She's just so like, and it's all mindset. And she
Yeah.
preaches that. She preaches its mindset. And so to take a page out of her book, like on the daily, has really
Uh-huh.
been good for me over this past year. And
Wow.
then the third person is my business coach and numerologist, Freya O'Brien, who is British.
Oh.
And, you hear about celebrities have a numerologist and things like that. Well, I have a numerologist. And,
Period.
yeah, snap, right?
Love that.
And so in working with Freya, she believes that we were all born with a purpose, and that our greatest success will happen when we lean into our purpose.
Mhm.
And she also believes and is very very astute in the world of numerology and numbers. And so I've been working with her for about 2 years now, and it's amazing. I mean, I didn't know this woman, and I gave her my birth date and a few other numbers, and she was able to tell me so much about myself that just was so true, and
What?
help me create a purpose-driven path for myself.
Mm. Mhm.
And I meet with her on the regular, and I have a very like focused approach now to how
Mhm.
I live my life, and how
Mm.
I use my gifts and talents that were God given to really do the hard things, but it's because it's all in the spirit of what the universe wants me to bring to the world. And some of
Yes.
it is stuff like this, speaking out, talking to other women, telling my story, telling stories of other women, so
Mhm.
that I can, really give hope and inspiration to people.
Yes.
And so those are the three that have been in my mind, like the three people that they're like my rocks in terms of
Wow.
my go forward, right? And sort of like how I even met all of them has been just kind of crazy, right?
Yeah. That
But
was transformative. And
very
that's
much
the
so.
word. And I think for our conversation, Tracy, the theme is gonna be transformative. We are transforming, and today I'm into all of the numbers. And when is your birthday? Let me guess. I'll
I'm
say,
a
what's your zodiac sign, baby?
I'm a Aries
Okay. Aries, fire sign. I'm
fire
a
sign.
Leo, fire
Mhm.
sign, but I also have an Aries moon and a Pisces rising. So I present as Aries. Most people might assume I'm an Aries, but
Mhm.
in the moon, anyway, long story short, in the moon matrix, which is the matrix that we're kind of leaving, right?
Yep.
We're leaving the matrix of, let's say, schooling and like one industry. And now we're moving into the sun matrix, which is you, the real you, the heart you, the passion of you, the true you. But my mother-in-law is an Aries, and one of my first mentors was an Aries in industry. And so I love all the zodiacs, because I think we all are the zodiac. We're all every zodiac.
Yes.
And we all tap into all the different energies. But I love how you shared that you have a numerologist, because that's a lot of the stuff I like to talk about on this show. Is not just the conventional, but really the new. It's like we're in a new dawn, a new world. And so
Completely.
yeah, the fact that you
Completely.
even thought to get a numerologist, like Tracy, that is so next level.
Well, you know what it was? I had another one of my colleagues that I used to work with who left corporate,
Mhm.
started her own business, and like rocket ship took off. And I've been watching her for years. And I just one day I had coffee with her, and I was like, "What's the secret? Like, I want to know what your secret is." And she goes, "Honestly, it's my numerologist." And I was like, "Give me your number," right? Because and she's like, literally, she had started working with Freya, and Freya had done the same thing that she's doing with me. I hooked Bianca up with her. Bianca's, following in my footsteps, working with her on her numbers and her path. And
Mhm.
so, I always thought it was crazy, like that was what celebrities did, right?
Yeah.
And like I think a lot of people don't know that a lot of like billionaires and people like that, they all have a numerologist, and they
Yep.
all follow the numbers, and they ground themselves in that. So anyway, I'm just here to say that there is something to it. I know it's a little woo. I'm a corporate girly, and like
Okay.
sometimes like I don't speak about this stuff because
Uh-huh.
it's very patriarchy driven in the
Mhm.
corporate space, and
True.
yeah, so that's kind of where I am
And then
though.
even in that space, you probably don't even have anybody to talk to even who even speaks that language. Like there's nobody there really, unless you like really carve it out or try to like make a way, which good luck.
Correct. I mean,
Yeah.
they are there, but
Mhm.
I almost feel like I'm working on a book right now, and my book is called Woo Leadership,
Oh,
because I believe that there's this corporate leadership, but then there's the woo, and they need to come together in this new dawn, in this new age,
yep,
right? And I
yep.
do believe that that's going to be, I've wrote something down. I was like, oh, I got to share this.
Please do.
So it's kind of like my mantra, or like my belief. It says, I believe the future is female. And when we learn how to lead in an anxious, lonely, cynical, and burnt out world, we can and we will change the world. However, our actions and behaviors must always be above reproach in order for others to follow our lead.
Mm.
And I'm so happy and grateful now that I'm able to positively impact people, women specifically, around the globe with this philosophy.
Wow. I love that, Tracy. I got to hear it one more time now. You are getting breaking. This is breaking news, okay? This is exclusive now. You're hearing it from the words of the creator herself. Tracy Imm is on the show. She's dropping gems. We just got started, but she's giving us mantras and philosophies. So please, Tracy, could you repeat that? Let's affirm. Let me hear it.
Absolutely. So I believe the future is female. And when we learn how to lead in an anxious, lonely, cynical, and burnt out world, we can and we will change the world. However, our actions and behaviors must always be above reproach in order for others to follow our lead. I'm
Mm,
so happy and grateful now that I'm able to positively impact women around the globe with my philosophy.
wow. You heard it here first, Tracy. Thank you so much for sharing that. That's how we make an impact. It starts with our words, and our words create worlds. And you
Yes.
literally just created a world, almost a portal, if you will, of thought process. Excuse me, woo leadership.
Exactly.
Woo leadership.
Exactly.
I hope that's in your book because we got to start with that. Oh, I love that. That is so Tracy, rewind. So thank you. Okay, that's why I like to do the icebreaker because we just get down into it, right? But Tracy, for people who don't know, please introduce yourself. Tell us, of course, we know your name, but what do you do, where you're located, and any family hats that you wear? Because I do like to talk about the feminine and wearing multiple hats. So if you have a partner, or if you have pets or children, anything like that, you can share that with us as well.
Sure. So I grew up in Baltimore, and I still live here. However, I have worked around the world. I've done business in over 67 countries in my
Wow.
journey. Yeah, I've had an epic career. Um, where I am right now, I really identify as a teacher and a writer.
Mhm.
And I've been in everything from corporate finance, mergers, acquisitions, strategy groups, to human resources, communications, marketing, change management, business transformation, you name it. I feel like
Mm.
I've been in IT. I've been in every corporate space and function that you can be in. But I've always been in a leadership position, even when I was a kid, all through high school, all
Mm.
through college, captains of sports teams, presidents of clubs, all of those
Mhm.
things. And yeah, so I identify as a global citizen, having worked in so many different cultures. But at the end of the day, we're all human. We all want to
Mhm.
be seen, heard, and valued.
Yep.
And I believe that, love is the most powerful emotion that we all should be aiming for.
Mhm.
And I feel like that's also part of this evolution of where we're trying to go as
Yeah.
a kind of a universe.
Yep.
And so I feel like I come from the school of love. Um, And, I just want to make the world a better place by sharing my gifts and talents, whether it's being an executive coach or a speaker or a meeting facilitator, or, in whatever way I can serve the needs of an organization, whether it's a nonprofit or it's a billion-dollar corporation, right? Because I've worked everywhere and in between, right? But I also know where I came from, right? And I know that I didn't grow up rich. I didn't, grow up. I was always ambitious. I always wanted my life to be a good life. But I also knew that it was going to take a lot of hard work. But what I've
Yeah.
learned as I've gotten kind of older is you can let it be easy, right? And so that's been, something that I've had to learn. The other thing, as I was kind of thinking about this is I was doing like a bunch of different research, and it said many of us make work our church. And I think that I subscribed to that for a very long time. And then the rest of the quote was, and then you get laid off, underpaid, or burnt out, and then you just decide to check out, gossip, do less, and just be really shaky. And I've been in all of those spots, right? So it's, learning that work shouldn't be your church, right? That you need to, really, it's hard to live a balanced life, right?
It is. It is.
And that's why I really see an anxious world, a lonely world, a cynical world, a burnt out world. And so we're all, I think, struggling with, you can't do it all, but you have to identify what are those big rocks in your life that you want to have be important and prioritized. And like the season of life I'm in right now, and that's the other thing, I coach a lot of my people, and I believe this, we go through seasons of life. The season of life that I'm in right now is I have an 84-year-old mother with Alzheimer's. She has an 86-year-old sister without really much support. And then I have my 93-year-old mother-in-law. I have my PhD in elder care right now. I can tell you about memory care. I can tell you about assisted living, and I can tell you about independent living.
Wow.
And it's what is the crisis of the moment? Who has fallen down?
Yeah.
Who hit their life alert? Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, it's just you go through these seasons, right? Like earlier in my life, I had a season where I could travel the world and work 80 hours a week, and that was a lifestyle choice that I made, right? And so you just have to recognize what season of life am I in, and that then drives your priorities.
Yeah. That is so powerful. It's funny, Tracy, one of my guests here on the show shared that she was also taking care of her mother and her mother's twin sister. And I think she identifies as not a boomer, Gen X. So she would be Gen X.
That's me. I'm Gen X.
Okay. Yep. And even my aunt Cheryl, who I love dearly, who also kind of is a Gen Xer. But what I'm saying is this, where the Gen Xers are in which season some or many Gen Xers are in. And that is one of them is the elder care, or taking care of their parents, or really seeing how, their parents are aging gracefully, right? Of course, there might be things they're enduring, but they're here. They're with us. And so I'm seeing that pattern among my Gen X associates and family members, where like my grandfather is upward 90. And my aunt, who is the youngest daughter, is now in that elder care mentality. So that's just so amazing to see. And then how you're able to really find or maybe either find it or create a new flow for yourself while you're in that season, right?
You have to, I had a business coach once, and he said, the quickest way through challenges is acceptance. He goes, the quicker you get to acceptance, the sooner things will get better. And I got to tell you, any challenge that I go through, I'm like, I got to get to acceptance. I got to get to acceptance. I got to get to acceptance. And so when you find yourself in those situations, because some of these boomers, they older, they plan for their retirement and they have the assets, right? Some did not. Some maybe left the workforce or didn't enter the workforce or didn't own a home, or, so everybody's situation's different,
Right.
right? And so you got to figure all of it out, right? And
Yep.
it is figure outable, but like it makes you then reflect on, oh my gosh, who's going to take care of me? Did I
Yep.
do the right planning? Am I putting enough pennies in the bank?
Yeah.
What kind of lifestyle do I want? Am I going to be able to afford care either in my home or at a facility?
Mm-hmm.
And it just changes your perspective. And then I also have friends who have children who are, so they're in the sandwich generation. I didn't have children, but their
Mm-hmm.
children still need support, right?
Yep.
Either they had children later, or their children are maybe, like, I have one friend, she calls her 26-year-old. She said he's just moving out of the household a little slower, right? And but he's going to be fine. And
Yeah.
so, like, everybody's situation's different, but you got to stand strong in your faith that you will get through it, and
Right.
that um you know things will happen the way they're supposed to happen, but you got to do your
True.
part. You got to do your part.
And that starts with just showing up. And what
Yep.
I love about this conversation is that what it sheds light on, again, how although we might be different, have our differences, we're really a lot. What you said earlier, we're still human. And so these are human conversations. These are things that impact humanity as a
Yes.
whole. It's not
Yes.
limited to your geographical location, your socioeconomic status, whether or not you have a degree. Girl, none of that matters once life happens. And I think it's empowering, and I'm glad we're here together to share this space and really just talk about that. Because even me, I identify as a millennial, but
Hmm.
frankly, we didn't really enter the workforce. Like the workforce wasn't really there, so it was dwindling by the time we came into workforce mentality. You're like, okay, finish college, I'm about to get a job. And so we I believe are the creators of the pivot, the creation. Like, okay, you got to
Yes.
create your way. You got to make something up. Like you got to be
Yes.
creative and come up with something. And it has paid off in the long run, because then that's what you call impact, because now we have more generations that really everybody can now think a little more creatively and know that, hey, there is no one way path to success. Like it just looks different for everyone. And it's funny, Tracy, you said earlier how you come from the school of love. Well, now our planet has evolved to the love frequency. And so what has happened is the planet itself is just moving faster. It's vibrating quicker and on a higher frequency. And so we're being called to do work from our heart space, which is to thrive, as opposed to our root, which was, like you said earlier, the more patriarchal, corporate, like very, square. There's not much room outside of what
Correct.
the norm is. And so I would love to hear your thoughts on aligning your career with your personal values and what that looks like and how that shapes your space. Because I could see how, I mean, if I was just watching the show for the first time, I would be like, so where do I start? you
Yeah,
know?
yeah, that's a great question. It's a great question. And I personally did a lot of core values work, and
Mm,
there's this thing called the Wheel of Life, which is like there's 11 domains in your life or whatever. And then I did a lot of work with Strength Finders to the point where I became a coach. But
mm,
I will tell you, when I work with people, a lot of times that's where I start with them, is identifying what their core values are. So you get really, really crystal clear on what your non-negotiables are. And then in the Wheel of Life, when you do that exercise, and a lot of life coaches use this tool or whatever, and that's who I did it with, you start to see where the disconnects are, right? Like you have maybe a high desire to be healthy and fit, but then you look at where you actually are and you see there's this huge delta, and it's because you're not eating right, you're not exercising right, like no
mm,
duh. But that then points you to the priorities of where you need to make some changes. And the thing about Strength Finders is when you know what you're really good at, then and I don't want to say you have weaknesses, but like if you lean into what you're really good at, it's usually the stuff you enjoy, right?
mm,
Like I was the editor of the newspaper in 7th grade, right? I've always been a writer, right?
mm,
I had a column when I was in college. I've always wanted to have like use my gifts of writing in the word in some positive impact space, right? Since I was 12 years old, right? And so I try to find work that aligns with that, whether it's a side hustle or it's a corporate thing. I want that to be a big part of my activities, right? Because that's when I'm in my flow state, and that's when I just, I get these downloads that I want to share. But that's a lot of like when I tell people, I'm like, those are the things that I think you need to start with. And the
Okay.
other thing I've also noticed is sometimes it'll shift depending on the season of life you're in, the core values in terms of like, some of the stuff is like motherhood and apple pie. Like, of course, integrity and honesty is like everybody wants that, right?
Yeah.
But like when it really comes down to it, like there may be some shifts or tweaks as you age, or you get more self-awareness about yourself, right? And you do more personal growth and development work on yourself.
Okay. Well, that's interesting. That's very that's a great place to start. And I never heard of the wheel of life and the core values. And I know over the weekend I was talking with my husband, and we had our own little woo session because, like I said, we are into the woo. Okay, I love the woo woo. I know that it's called. What are we talking about? The woo, the spirit, the unseen, the supernatural. Y'all know I'm very spiritual on this channel, so I'm all for that. And what we've been tackling is what we like to call our 3-body problem. So it's your mind, body, and spirit alignment. And if we are vehicles, and like if you have a bad tire or if one of the tires is flat, you're not going to be able to go. Your ride is going to be bumpy. You're going to be like breaking down on the side of the road. Like you're not going to be able to move forward. And so we've been able to kind of identify, well, what is causing me to be out of alignment? In other words, what is not in alignment with me, with my true self? And I love how now, thanks to the future is now, authenticity is starting to really come into the front facing, like everything. Like authenticity, yes. I think is the buzzword of the year, but it's really helping me shed light on my own personal values, like you said, and whatever's not in alignment, I gotta stop doing it. Like I cut out candy recently, and I'm like, I used to love candy, but I'm like, I'm like 30 plus. I should probably not be eating candy like that. And then when we thought through it, it's like, it's kind of predatory. Like the way that, the way that they market candy, they act like everybody's 6 years old, and then they put it right in front of the register. And it's like, I love gummies. Okay. I love gummy worms and gummies, but it's like, I probably shouldn't be eating those. It's not good for me. And so just to make that conscious decision, like I'm going to take that out my wheelhouse, my wheel of life, because it doesn't align with me. So talk to me a little bit about authenticity. And one, can we be authentic? Like I know we couldn't in the past, but maybe now we can be. Like, I know we can. I'll say it like that. I know we could be authentic, but what are your thoughts on authenticity and in our being?
I think it's absolutely critical that, especially if you're in a leadership position in any capacity, whether it's in your church or synagogue, like whatever community you're part of or, affiliated with, I think that you're going to be miserable. And it's funny because I wrote down mind, body, soul connection is something that is really important to me as well. And I think that you have to be intentional on the daily with your self-care and your self-love. I also think that, and I've seen this with a lot of people in their career, and it's even happened to me, when I'm out of alignment or I'm in an environment that's out of alignment with who I authentically am, that's when it's time to go. Like that's when it's time to say, I need to exit stage right, because something in this space, either the person you're working with or the people you're working with or the company that you're working through or whoever, that's like a red flag to me. And earlier in my life, it wasn't a red flag. I thought, oh, you're just supposed to put up. Like, just put up with all this nonsense and BS. But I would tell you that I've seen that, as a lot of people will come to me for coaching, or, you know, they'll come to some of my workshops or things like that. And I'll be like, they'll have, I can see their light bulb goes off, right? When I start talking about alignment, I start talking about authenticity and getting real with yourself. And it's like, you know, and some people have golden handcuffs where they're making so much money that they feel like they can't walk away. And I always challenge that, because that's not really where you're supposed to be. That's the universe sending you signals, right?
Yeah.
Get out, get out, get out. And like, it's time to go. Right.
Yep.
And again, get to acceptance. Accept that this is time for you to go. You can, and I was having this conversation with somebody the other day she's probably like 30 and she's in maybe her second or third job, and she's working for somebody. It's just, it's not a good fit. It's not a good match. And I just said, you need a short-term plan and you need a long-term plan. Your short-term plan is to stay here and endure, but know that you've got to get out. Right.
Yeah.
And so you got to come up with your strategy for like tolerations, right?
Okay.
But know that you'll tolerate until X day or whatever. But in the meantime, you have to get crystal clear on what it is that you want in order to manifest it.
Yes.
Right? Because I believe in that as well.
Yes.
That the clearer you are on what it is that you do desire, what you do want, the universe can almost like fill the order like Chick-fil-A, right? But if you just say, I want chicken sandwich, they're like, well, do you want one with cheese or spicy? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So it's worth the time to sit with yourself and really say, what is it that I want?
And that takes time.
It takes time, and don't rush it. Don't rush it. You know?
Yeah. Okay, note to self and to those watching. You just heard from a coach now. She knows what she's talking about. That's what you do if you find yourself in the midst of that kind of situation where you're trying to figure out where your next move is. Unfortunately, you have to be the one to take it and make it.
You do.
Nobody's gonna come rescue us. And I think that's something, as generations have passed on. I can't speak multi-generational, but I just love the landscape of humanity, right? Like, I don't know what the youth think, like, let's say people in high school and stuff, but like, honestly, there was no dream job. Like, I had a dream job and then I got it. And then when I got it, I was like, oh, this isn't my dream. This is just a job. Like, I don't know, but I thought that was what I was looking for, or what I needed or wanted, but I wasn't clear. Like, I wasn't clear on what I really was manifesting.
Yeah, but like, and sometimes, and that's happened to me too, Giselle. Like, I've thought, oh my God, I can't believe I'm going to get to be the blah, blah, blah. Right. And then I get in there and I was like, oh my gosh, this is not like not what I thought, not what I expected. And then that's when like you have to kind of use your influencing skills to kind of shape it to what you do want it to be.
True.
And then you might get some resistance from people above or around you. And sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't, you know, and that's why I always encourage people to have a side gig.
Yeah.
Have some side gig. And you don't have to become a multimillionaire. Like, you could just go be a freelance writer. You could be a SEO specialist freelancer. Like, always have that little side thing that you can flex up and down, that, you know, get your little LLC set up so that you've got like a, you know, you don't need to be like making the big bucks, but, you know, experiment with that little entrepreneurship, right? And get some coaching and help. Like, all these business schools, they have all these like innovation works programs and stuff. A lot of them are free that will just teach you the basics. Like, I was a communications major. I didn't know anything about debits and credits. I went back to school, right? But there's so many free resources out there on the internet, and so many entrepreneurial groups in different communities and spaces that you can just learn from. Because you always want to have that little thing that's your thing. It could be making jewelry. It could be making soap. It could be name your product, name your service, right? But I always encourage people, like, you know, to have something like that, right? Because you never know. You could come into work tomorrow and they could be like, "Oh, we lost a big customer, so 200 people had to go, and you just happened to be one of the 200, right?"
Mhm.
And so you just always have to be prepared for that these days,
Yeah.
right?
And
And
Tracy,
I,
oh, go
yeah,
ahead. Go ahead.
no, well, I was just going to say the other thing that I think, and I'm kind of curious how this is all going to land, but these companies that are saying you got to come back in 4 days a
Mhm.
week, 5 days a week, for what? Like I just I don't understand. I'm going to sit in a cube on a Zoom call with people sitting next to me on a Zoom call that's not my Zoom call. Like really? Like technology is here, people.
It is. It has to be some kind of real estate thing,
It is. It's totally
money.
that. It's real
Okay.
estate. It's economic development and real estate and politics and taxes and it's all the things, right?
Yeah.
But the smart companies are very open to remote. They are
Yep.
very open to hybrid. They are not rigid. They treat you like a professional
Yep.
that get your work done, right? And the people that don't get their work done, then you deal with that, right?
Right.
But you got it's this like level of trust, right? Like the
Mhm.
patriarchy doesn't trust anything.
Nope.
And so that's why, and this is kind of like one of my visions, is that
Mhm.
more women will be owning successful businesses, pursuing their passions, pursuing their dreams, earning good incomes. And
Yep.
you can also be in corporate leadership, right? But in a different construct.
Yes. I agree. I see that too, Tracy. I am envisioning the same kind of future, and it starts with us in these kind of spaces, and this is all about empowering the feminine. This is not
Yes.
about disempowering the masculine. It's literally about empowering the feminine. And Tracy, I wanted to piggyback off of what you were saying earlier about the mindset or having
Mhm.
a side hustle. Because, like I said, I think when I came into the like post grad, I was my first thought was side hustle. Like I'm a side hustle first. Hopefully I get a job, but I have to hustle my way into the job that I want. When did you develop this mindset? Was this something that you've always kind of thought of? Like you got to always have something, or how did that look for you?
I always wanted it, but I never had the courage until
Mm,
probably, I'd say maybe like 10 years ago. And I was like, I was seeing all my friends, really successful and then like completely leaving corporate to be
mhm,
successful. And then they would hire these mindset coaches. And then the next thing you know, they were 7 figure and 8 figure and 9 figure business owners. And I was like,
mhm.
I want some of that.
Yep.
Right. And so, kind of like what's the path that they took? So, and over the last, I'd say 5 years, I've gone in and out of like full-time entrepreneurship to scaling back the side hustle to scaling it up. Like I've gone back and forth,
Mhm,
right? And because I'm getting closer to retirement, right? And so in
mhm.
my mind, I'm never going to retire. I'm going to do what I want to do from where I want to do it,
Yep.
right? And so, but I also know that I have to build up content following, like all the things to be able to do that in service to my people and my
Gotcha.
community, right? And
Okay.
the people that I want in my community. And so I've spent the last 5 years, building content, building workshops, getting
Mhm,
client testimonials, like doing all the things. And now that I'm working on this book, I'm working with a book coach because I want to be traditionally published.
mm,
And that's a
mhm,
whole nother ball of wax. And so
mhm.
I've been working with a book coach who's working with me on my book proposal. And that's a big part of when you get traditionally published, there's only like five big ones, right? That will publish your book, right? And it's very competitive and they only want to take risk on people who are known entities, right, that have something to say in the world. And so you have to it's in the marketing and the positioning. You know this from your
Mhm.
background,
Yep.
right? It's how you position yourself. And so that's part of my plan of how am I going to get to where I want to go and what do I want to manifest. I want to be living at the beach writing books and serving
Exactly.
people from my computer, right?
Yes. Yes.
Coaching, leading, speaking, inspiring, like all the things,
Yes.
right? And
I
so you
love
have to
it.
kind of, have that vision. And that's my vision. That might not be your vision. It might be,
Mhm.
what I mean? We all are given that unique vision of why we're here. And it's interesting because when I look back over the obstacles and challenges that I've faced in my career, um, I've really come to view them simply as life lessons
Yeah.
that I learned, and I view them now as gifts.
Yep.
There was a lot of tears shed, let me tell you, um, in meetings with high executive men where I'm like, I can't believe I'm bawling my eyes out, right? But now that I look back on it, I'm like, no, it was supposed to happen that way.
Mhm. That's so nice. And I wanted to ask because it sounds like Tracy, you are an investor in yourself. And on my last show, I talked to a coach. She's an AI strategist and coach, and she is very high focused on self development and really investing in yourself. And I think I've heard that you've shared at least 2 or 3 different coaches that you work with, that you employ, so that you can become the best version of yourself. Talk to us a little bit about how important is hiring a coach on your journey to success, and like, why do women in particular, because we talked to the girls, why is it important for women to have coaches or invest in coaches if they're trying to level up, scale up, take it to the next level?
Great question. I would tell you that I've spent hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars with investment in myself
Mm-hmm.
that has paid off. In return, I've gotten hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars of business as a result of the work that I have done on myself. I've always been a seeker, but it really wasn't until I put some skin in the game at a very high level that things started to shift for me. And I don't just say that because I'm a coach, and I feel like everybody says they're a coach. But when I think about the training I went through, so I went through the Neuro Leadership Institute, and everything is brain based. It's all based in neuroscience. So I was coaching a lot of people that were technical scientists, engineers. And so I felt that in order for me to be a credible coach in that space, in the STEM kind of world, I needed to be my training needed to be based in science.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went through a really, really grueling program that was like world class, spent a lot of money on that. And then but I made all my money back. Every time I've
Wow.
ever made an investment, it has come back to me 10 times. And I
Mm-hmm.
would agree with you that what your coach guest said is that you absolutely have to invest in yourself. I would also tell you that many of my clients are women, and I have found that we tend to not think we're lovable. We don't think we're worthy. We have imposter syndrome. And I think a lot of it has to do with the way that girls are raised in this world, specifically in North America, just because
Mm-hmm.
that's been my experience. And we have a lot of generational trauma to overcome, that has been passed down to us if we don't even realize it. And so that's why I think a lot of women are doing a lot of the work around healing their traumas and their wounds,
Mm-hmm.
so that they can then show up as their best self.
Yes.
And I think, when you asked me also, we had one of your interview questions around self-care.
Yes.
um, I meditate every single day for at least an hour to regulate my nervous system.
Mm.
Game changer. I do acupuncture. I
Mm.
do energy healing, whether it's Reiki or sound baths. My number one book that I give to every coach and client is "You Can Heal Your Life" by Louise Hay. It's like my Bible.
Okay.
Um, and I think that the more we can heal ourselves and our female ancestors' trauma that they've gone through, um, I think the stronger we're going to be as that feminine energy coming out into the world and really
Mm.
trying to shift the narrative, right?
Yes.
In both the work world and the world as a whole.
Yes.
So, but yeah, I just, when I first heard somebody say that they had spent, I don't know, hundreds of $1,000s on a coach, I was like, oh my God, where'd she get that money? But you know what? After I heard that, I was like, well, I see where she is today. And I
Right.
saw where she was before she spent that money. Two different people getting two different outcomes and results. There must be something to it, right?
Yep.
And the thing is, money is energy.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the other thing I think a lot of women don't have straight is their money story.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can find yourself a money coach, do it,
Okay.
because you got to get yourself square with money.
Okay. You heard it here first. Money, find yourself a money coach. Money is energy. It is energy. And, if we're talking business, whether you love your business or not, the whole point is to get money, receive money, attract high paying clients, attract high paying mindsets. Just everything is elevated. And
it is.
I mean, that's tea right there. That's literally the message is money is energy. Find yourself a money coach. And I know after the pandemic, there was a very much there was a uprise of coaching coaches. But I believe that is the future. It's the now and it's the future. Why? Because if we're all seeking to be our authentic selves, to literally generate income from being ourselves, passive income, passive income,
right?
Passive income, then that means we're all going to need to be coached in certain areas. I know this year I had hired a fitness coach, so a personal trainer. And, a lot of people are using AI like ChatGPT to come up with different coaching methodologies, but ChatGPT is free. So when it's free, you really don't respect it in the same way that you would if you put your money where your mouth is. And so I definitely really hearing you say that in this timeline, it makes so much sense because we submit to the patriarchy in the form of college, right?
Correct.
I paid over $100,000 to go to college, but I mean, I definitely got my money back, but it definitely wasn't in the way that I know it can be. It can happen now. Go ahead. What you going to say?
I was going to say. So I for the last 10 years I've been an adjunct professor, and I think the higher education in America is broken, and I think that's why you see the rise of the trades and apprenticeships, because you don't have to go to college. You can learn to become a plumber or an electrician and make six figures, right? And the world needs plumbers and electricians, right? Not everybody's cut out for college. And also there's a lot of discussion around what is the value of what you get. When I went to college many moons ago, it was all about teaching me how to think, critical thinking skills, and things of that nature. But that doesn't have to be in a brick and mortar like campus, right? That like technology has blown the doors off of all that. So yeah, I think it's going to be interesting to see. And through the pandemic, there was a lot of consolidation of universities and colleges and stuff. And that's why you see people like Mike Rowe and Dirty Jobs and like workforce development that's in that space of, like I used to work for a utility, and it's like, you need line workers, you need bucket truck guys, you need people that are in the trenches with the gas lines and all. Like all those guys are retiring, right? And so you need people to come out of VOTEC high schools and get trained up on those utility skills, right? That are always in demand, right?
That's true.
So all that to say, I think that, the other stat that I saw the other day is only 23% of the workforce in America is engaged. 23%. So people are like, they're just not checked in. They're like, there's, and I think that that's kind of a scary statistic.
It is. And then you say, why? I didn't see that statistic, but that to me, it feels like the harsh reality of what you said earlier, which is it's a broken system. And I'll speak like for millennials, and this is like a running joke on social media. It's like, we've been through so much. We've been through the 9/11. Then we saw this, we saw the different, all the administrations. We've seen so much. It can't get any worse. It's like, we've seen it. We've lived through it. We went to college and there was an economic recession. And then there
Right.
was the crash. She was like, wait, we're supposed to be having kids and having babies and starting families and getting houses. And it's like nothing. It was like a sandcastle. It felt like and it still does. Okay. It still does. We're just pivoting and what do you say? Acceptance. We're accepting. Then we saw the pandemic. We saw this whole 2020 happen. And it's like, what is going on? But I say all that to say, we're a very resilient crew. And in that resilience, I don't think we ever really believed, because when we thought to believe, when we had a little sheer bit of hope, it was just stripped away. Kind of like believing in Santa Claus. And it's like, okay, well, we'll get it. It'll happen. It'll happen. And then next thing you know, it never happened. And then when we spent a lot of our time on social media, mind you, Facebook came out when I was a freshman in college. And me and Mark Zuckerberg are the same age. So I didn't look at him like some big social media giant. It was like, this guy at Stanford. He started a social media network. We're going to see what it is, right? We were actually like user testing. But we didn't look at him like a goal. We were just like, it's this guy at Stanford. But follow up 10 years later, literally 10 years or so, there's a whole industry of what we call social media. And a lot of millennials, not a lot, I'm gonna say I'm one of the millennials who really did not get the monetization of the beginning stages of social, right? We were encouraging it and promoting it. Like for my business, I was, selling the services, things like that. But it wasn't, we were still selling the idea. It wasn't adopted. And then nowadays, everyone's like, we're all trying to get on social to get earn money and attract money. And so it's one thing to sit back and be like, I can't believe things have changed. We didn't get, or you could pivot and evolve with the times. And I think that's what I've been doing, is transforming, like what we talked about earlier. You really have to transform. And Tracy, I know you've seen some things change. And one day it was like this, then things have just shifted. And so I do have, that's where I respect time in service. Or like, okay, I've been in this industry with maybe you like 20, 30 years. Like you have to respect the time in service, because, I'm acting like it's something new, but this has always been happening, right? It's like, there's nothing new under the sun.
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, I know when I graduated, there was also right before I graduated, there was it was hard to get a job. It was really hard to get a job. And then, Gen X is very different than millennials and boomers, very different. And I love the memes that are out there about Gen X. Like some of the stuff that we did that you look at now and you're like, oh my God, I can't believe we did that. But, I still think we have a ways to go, right? There's still pay equity issues. In 2024, we have more women in senior leadership position and on corporate boards, but not significantly, and not minorities either. And, it's just like, how do we move that needle, right?
Yeah.
And and that's I've tried to get myself involved in advocacy groups around those types of issues, right? There is no reason why, person A, person B, and person C who are doing the same darn job are not making the same wage.
Yep.
That is just wrong.
Yeah.
Right?
And that's what happened in Hollywood too. It was the same thing.
Right. I mean, it's pervasive in every industry, at every level, and every type of role, right?
True.
And so, how do we fix that? And then, we have much more awareness around it now, which is a good step, but it's only a first step. And and then the same thing with women in senior leadership. There's no reason why, when I first started working, there was no people of color and no women in any good leadership jobs. None. I was part of the first wave of people that were coming up through the system. And, I saw my friends get passed over. I saw my African-American friends get passed over, and it's heartbreaking, right? Because I'm working side by side and I'm like, that person is the bomb. They need to be recognized. And, and so there's work to be done there. And now on corporate boards, and these big corporate boards, these people make $100,000 a meeting. and they
Mm.
meet 4 times a year. For
Mhm.
what? Right? There's no reason why you can't have experienced women
Mhm.
in those roles being
Yep.
asked to, and in the past it was all about pedigree and where you went to college and, what senior executive role did you have? Well, we weren't given those senior executive roles.
Mm.
So we
Mhm.
don't have that pedigree. We don't have that on our resume,
Yep.
and so it's like we got to break those barriers down. We got to like those there it's just those barriers need to come down in
And
whatever way. Yeah.
yeah, so it sounds like that's the glass ceiling that is very much still present. And then I was going to ask you, how has the landscape of women in leadership evolved from when you were early in your career to today? And I think you just answered that
Yeah.
question.
Yeah, I mean, it has evolved, but
Mhm.
not as quickly as I would have liked to have seen.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but I
Because we're
also
here.
if
Because we're
we're
here now.
here,
Like
yeah, we're here.
literally, this is here.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, but not. I just want to see more doors opened, and I
Yeah.
want more opportunities to be given to talented people.
So, what advice can you give people, particularly women, seeking to take action towards living their dreams? Because I will go on a soapbox one more time, Tracy. I love, like I said, this is a safe space. Listen here. I am naturally like very feminine in my approach to work and creativity. Like I've always been like a dancer, or I've always just been a creative space. Like I'm a Leo, so Leo sun, we're ruled by the heart and creativity. And so that has worked for me, but um in the workplace, or even like I worked in tech at one point. There was digital marketing, a consultant for a tech company. And I noticed that I just like the feminine, it really wasn't welcome. It wasn't even really needed, right? Or on on a project I was on recently, I had one of my colleagues who is a woman. She said, "Oh, that creative stuff is not needed. We don't need that." And I'm just like, why would you, that's not cool. Like, what you mean? Like, that's everything to me. But I don't know. I don't know. And I'm still learning. I think we're all still learning. And Tracy, you're inspiring me to look into coaches and different types of coaches, because I feel like I could use a coach, like an investment
Mhm.
coach, like to invest in myself by way of a coach. But with that feminine essence that you and I are trying to lift up through our work and through our everyday being, it's still it's a challenge. It's hard. It is hard, because we are in a transformation on the planet where we are moving towards the feminine, but we have to let go of what was, and that's going to take some time because it was a long time that it was in place.
Yeah.
So,
I
what advice could you give women
yeah,
who want to take action about that, like to live their
yeah,
dreams and just do
yeah,
the work that they love, and just change their mindset? Really, is what it sounds
yeah,
like.
yeah. So there's a couple things. First of
Okay.
all, you need to go where you're loved because that's where
Mhm.
you're going to do your best work. I would also
Mhm.
say that everybody's on their own path and not everybody is as spiritually awake and conscious. And
Mhm.
so this person that said that to you, my first reaction is she's not self-aware enough to know that she's not she's not highly conscious, right?
Mhm.
And then the last thing I would say is you want to surround yourself with highly conscious and self-aware individuals who are like-minded to lift you up, right? That's why I spend time with Bianca. That's why I spend time with Freya. That's why
Mhm.
anything Dr. Shirley puts out, I read, right? And
Mhm.
so you surround yourself. So Jim Rohn, who was in the personal development field, he's passed away. He was Tony Robbins' coach, but he said
Mhm.
that you're the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time with, and
Mhm.
I think there's some real truth to that. And I remember when I first heard that, I was like, oh, who are the 5 people I surround myself with? And one of
Mhm.
the people was my boss at the time. And what I realized was he was really bringing me down because he never said anything nice to me. He never complimented me. He was highly critical. And I would just get myself all out of sorts because I was spending hours and hours with this person because
Mhm.
of our work and what we were working on and the projects that we were in charge of. And I realized at that moment I needed to change jobs because
Yeah.
he wasn't a good person. He's a good person, he's a smart person, but I was spending way too much time with him. And I find that when I surround myself with people that inspire me, motivate me, are also highly awake and highly conscious, who believe in sort of the same things I believe in, it's like all the tide rises, right? We're all in
Yes.
right? We're going up in the
Yes.
air. Um,
Yes.
so, I would just say that you're not always going to be loved where you are at work, but find your people, you
Mhm.
know. There are people that are watching you and they're like, oh my God, her energy, her spirit, like we need more of that. And like, just because that's like one person's perspective that they didn't need the creative. I can tell you they
Mhm.
need the creative. Hell yeah. You
Yeah.
always creative, right? Like, and sometimes people say things like that because they feel threatened by you, or
Mhm.
like you're too positive, like too colored glasses for
Mhm.
them,
Mhm.
and want to maintain that control and structure or whatever, but like never let that dim your spirit.
Mhm.
Right. And then another quote that I love is Stephen Pressfield. He wrote Bagger Vance. He's a writer. He said most of us have lived two lives: the life we live and the unlived life within us. Between the two stands resistance. And I think that's
Mm.
really good, right. Like, so you're going about life, you're living it, but then you've got this like secret, like you want to bring the creative spirit to everything.
Mhm.
And there's like you're not able to. It's because you're resisting bringing that to it, right?
Mhm.
Writers face that a lot, right? Like you get your butt in the seat and you're like, I'm going to go make a cup of coffee, right? Like you find reasons not to do stuff because that's you just naturally resisting what you want to do and you need to do, but you just find excuses not to do it.
So true. Like, stop eating candy so that you don't eat sugar for
Exactly.
no reason. Like, it's just, look, why did I start thinking about it again? Because I'm so serious. Why is it so convenient? You just pick it up, pop it in your mouth. Like, if I'm going to eat sweets, Tracy, I have a new rule. It's like, if I don't bake it, I can't eat it. Or if it's not
Oh,
baked. Because baked means someone took time to make this cookie or this cake or this cupcake.
okay.
But if it's just manufactured, and they just pop it in a package, put it on a shelf, put it at the gas station, and say, hey, you want some gummies? No, I don't need that. I don't want that. Because it's just too easy. Like, why is it so easy? Why is it so easily accessible? It's like fast food. It's a
Yes,
fast fix. Oh my God. So, Tracy, I feel like we could talk all day, but this has been such a great conversation, Tracy. And before we wrap up, I would love to give you a chance for people who want to get in touch with you, want to learn more about your business, your books, because you have a lot of books, which we didn't talk about. You have
yeah,
books
yeah, yeah.
already out there,
I do.
podcasts, all kind of media, and already have a digital footprint as Tracy Imm. So please let the people know how they can reach you and work with you.
Definitely. So everything is my name, right? So my website is tracyimm.com. If you go on LinkedIn and you want to connect with me and you want to just say, hey, I heard you on Goddess Giselle's podcast, just put that in there and I'll accept your link and then, whatever kind of note you want to say. But yeah, I would love to be in touch with people. I do have books. Just Google me on Amazon and I will pop right up. I think there's a few Tracy Imms out there, but like I've worked really hard at my search engine optimization. Because that's a thing.
Okay.
But
The
yeah,
brand is on. Okay.
the brand is on, and same with my
Google you.
podcast.
I
Yep.
see you. Okay.
Yes.
I love it. And your podcast. And they can
Oh
listen
yeah.
to that.
So yeah. So I have about 80 episodes out there. It's called Brave Girls with Tracy Imm. I interview women about their stories and what the bravest thing is that they've done and what they've been through. Some of these women and their stories are friggin' incredible. I'm a
Wow.
storyteller. I know you are too. And
Yeah.
yeah, I started it before like a lot of women were in podcasting. It's gone crazy viral and I'm getting ready to relaunch it. So I stopped it right before the pandemic, but I'm getting ready to relaunch because I want to continue to have these types of conversations and create this space just like you.
Awesome.
Right?
I love that. Yes, we are doing the work, Tracy. And fun fact, me and Tracy met at a conference here in Atlanta,
Yep.
at the High Museum of Art, and we were in
Yep.
our gifts, in our passions, and in our creative flow. So that's how we met. So it's funny that we're crossing paths again, but we are still connected on LinkedIn. But just fun fact, I met her and we met each other because we were in our gifts and operating in our purpose. So, and I think you were a
Definitely.
speaker at that event.
I was. I was, yes, I gave a talk. Yeah, it was a communications event. And I remember
Yes.
meeting you and I was like, this girl's on fire, man.
Yes, and I am still flaming. Okay, I'm still on fire. Now, I'll be honest, after 2020, which I think maybe on the next time we have you on the show, we'll go into detail. But I think all of us have been going through different versions of ourselves since 2020. But
For
Tracy, I'm
sure.
so glad that we are here together right now and still standing, still fighting the good fight of women empowerment and really just showing up and doing the work, because that's how you really make an impact. You can't talk about it, you got to be about it. So I'm just so glad we're still doing what we said we were going to do, right?
Absolutely. We did. We talked about it then.
We
We're still here.
did. I
We
love
did.
that. Don't mess with
Mhm.
the fire signs, y'all. We're not going to stop.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I love
Yes.
this kind of stuff. I absolutely love it.
Yes. And with that being said, it's your girl, Goddess Giselle. This is episode 10 with Tracy Imm. And be sure to like, share, and subscribe. And thank you so much for tuning in. We'll talk to you later. Bye.